Okay, good morning again, everybody. My name is Pierce. I'm a program coordinator at Claire, as I mentioned before, and I made a little goof earlier. I apologize. The previous presentation was a keynote speech, not this one. I was just trying to build some suspense, because this is a very exciting presentation. It's not. But there's a lot of very vital information here. I had a question about attendance cards earlier, by the way, and I know it's a little bit confusing, so we have you here now, so you can't leave. But starting in the afternoon, we're going to start taking attendance, starting with the mental health presentation, okay? All right, so let's get started. On behalf of the Department of JET Program Management, I would now like to explain some important information about the JET program. You can find the handout for this session called the 2019 Post-Arrival Orientation JET Program Essential Information and Disaster Preparedness in your JET bag. And you may wish to take notes as you follow along. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so first I would like to talk about the structure of the JET program. The JET program is administered by and for local Japanese local authorities, that is prefectures, designated cities, towns, and villages. In JET program terminology, local authorities and private schools which employ JET participants are called contracting organizations. Sometimes we shorten that to COs. As a JET participant, you will receive a salary to be a government employee or a private school employee. Oh, I'm sorry, I just jumped. And you will be engaged in the further development of foreign language education and international exchange. For this reason, each of you will be an invaluable asset to your contracting organization. Please keep in mind that the recruiting and selection process, as well as training and consultation, are performed according to the contracting organization's requests. I want to make a quick note here, actually not quite related to this. Every presentation today and the workshops tomorrow, we're going to be making a quick announcement about whether it's okay to take pictures and video. For this presentation in particular, it's totally okay if you want to take pictures, but you should have everything you need in front of you in your handouts, okay? All right, so moving on. Rather than directly recruiting and screening candidates, contracting organizations send a request to Claire. Claire forwards that request to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, also known as MOFA, which recruits and selects the most suitable candidates through the Japanese embassies and consulates found overseas. Next, Claire assigns the JET participants to their placements, where they will be directly employed by their contracting organizations. Note that neither Claire, the JET program at large, or any of the associated government ministries are the JET participants' actual employer. Contracting organizations are, in most cases, either a prefectural or a municipal board of education or a private school, and perform the following functions for JET participants. They provide employment and remuneration to JET participants. They perform administrative tasks and assist with various procedures necessary for living and working in Japan. They provide guidance on work-related matters, manage JET employees, provide work performance evaluations, reference letters, proof of employment after JET, and some may provide assistance with daily matters of life like housing and transportation. So now let's take a look at training opportunities offered to JET participants. Both Claire and the host prefectures/designated cities provide training to JET participants as requested by your contracting organizations. In cooperation with MEXT, which is the Ministry of Education, Culture, Science, Sports, and Technology, Claire organizes and holds post-arrival orientations, like the one you're attending now, and Claire also offers other training programs, such as a mid-year conference for CIRs and the After JET conference for all participants who are leaving the program. Host prefectures/designated cities plan and hold prefectural orientations and skills development conferences, also known as SDCs, for ALTs. We do strongly encourage that you attend all of these training opportunities and work constantly towards the improvement of your skills. Next up, I'd like to talk about the JET program consultation system. So if a problem does arise, please consult with your employer directly, for example, your contracting organization's supervisor. However, you may not be able to actually find a solution by consulting only with your contracting organization, or you might find it a little bit difficult to talk about it, depending on the case, the nature of the matter. So in that case, you might want to consult with your host prefecture/designated city's prefectural advisor. This is known as a PA, prefectural advisor. There is at least one assigned to each host prefecture, and basically their role is to help provide information, support, consultation, and in some cases training, like they'll help organize these skills development conferences for JET participants. If contracting organizations or host prefectures find it difficult to solve certain issues, they might seek Claire's advice. Everyone will then, in that case, work closely together to kind of find the best solution. But please understand that neither Claire nor your host prefecture have any authority over your contracting organization. And at best, we can offer advice to the employer and just encourage dialogue between you guys. So from the explanation so far, you can definitely understand, and obviously this massively long application process that you've now finally made it through. Congratulations. You can easily understand that there are a lot of parties involved in the operation of the JET program. It's a rather convoluted system. So if you do leave the program before the end of your designated appointment, please understand that all of these people and organizations who have been working so hard so that you can participate, as well as students, coworkers, members of your community, will all be very negatively affected if you withdraw. So please do refrain from terminating your appointment if you can help it. Next up, I'd like to talk about something that is only going to apply to you all, this year's incoming JET participants. So a period of participation on the JET program begins on the day after you arrive in Japan, and it usually ends 1 year later. Your length of appointment refers to the period during which you're appointed to your contracting organization, and it's also 1 year, okay? Due to a revision that's coming up in the law that concerns local government employees, your period of appointment will technically be separated into 2 parts, before and after April 1st, 2020. This does not have any bearing on your actual period of participation in the program, which is still 1 year. Basically what this means is that JET participants are being reassigned to a new category of employee, but in general, working conditions are going to remain exactly the same. And if you have any questions about this, you can refer to your supervisor at your contracting organization. Okay. All right, moving on. So as mentioned before, it is vital that you understand that your CO, your contracting organization, is your employer, not Claire, not the JET program, not any of the 3 Japanese ministries. This employer and employee relationship between CO and JET participant is the core of the JET program. It is your contracting organization who pays your remuneration, and you should adhere to their instructions as best as possible when you're carrying out your work duties. A staff member at your contracting organization is designated as your supervisor, and it's important that you build a positive relationship with this person, maintain frequent and open communication, and regularly consult with him or her. As your employer, only your CO is able to do things such as explain your employment terms and conditions, register you for health insurance, arrange your work schedule, and obviously discuss and help resolve issues that might come up in the workplace. Again, neither Claire nor the 3 ministries have any actual authority over your CO, and so at best we can offer advice when they come to us. Some JET participants encounter issues especially involving working duties and paid leave. So after you arrive at your placement, please confirm with your contracting organization the rules and the culture surrounding these matters. We're going to talk more about that later, so don't worry. So in particular, I'm going to talk about it now. In particular, issues often arise because of miscommunications about leave. This is kind of a big one. So we're going to go into a bit of detail about this. In your country, it might be relatively easy to take paid leave and go on a slightly longer vacation, but this isn't quite the case in Japan, as many hesitate to take leave when they know it might affect others in their workplace. Your employer does have the right to request that you change your dates of your requested leave when considering your work schedule and the schedule of your coworkers. Usually that's a pretty rare thing that happens. As you might not be allowed to take paid leave during a busy period at work, I suggest asking for an annual event schedule ahead of time and confirming with your CO which time of year exactly is best to leave. Obviously, they're going to prefer that you take leave whenever there are like student breaks going on. Furthermore, while you might be provided with sick leave and special leave, actually taking this special kind of leave is a little bit more difficult than you might think in some cases. With regard to sick leave first, to receive approval, it's not uncommon to be necessary to send in a doctor's note or a receipt issued from the hospital. So just confirm ahead of time, whether you need this kind of thing or not. Looking at special leave, this is usually granted only in very limited specific situations. For instance, according to the terms and conditions proposed by Claire to the COs, 10 consecutive days of special leave are provided in case of a death in the family. However, please be aware that in Japan, the weekend is also included in this 10-day calculation. So this is just one example of the culture possibly being a bit different from how it is in your home country. Regulations for special leave, it's completely different depending on each contracting organization. So again, just be sure to ahead of time figure out, make this, have this talk ahead of time basically. And do be aware of the differences in culture regarding leave, and just confirm with them what kind of leave is available and what you need to do to take that leave. I don't suggest that you have that conversation right whenever you arrive, though. It might be might look a little bit bad. Okay, and so I just want to mention a few of the resources that Claire provides. As you can see, we do offer training for contracting organizations. Every year we have a couple of conferences where we help them understand more about the JET program and what it does, and how to support JET participants who they're going to be employing. And this is, actually I'd like to just talk a little bit about Claire in general, because it's perhaps not completely clear. We also place JET participants, of course. I'm not particularly on that team, but it is a madhouse when that happens because there are so many JET participants coming over. But I think they do a great job. The training conferences that I mentioned before, in particular for you, skills development conferences, or SDCs, will be taking place throughout the year. I'm actually on the team that goes out and gives talks at those, so hopefully I get to see you again at one of those. We also publish a few useful materials, such as the General Information Handbook. Has anyone taken a look at the GIH yet? Hopefully most of you have at least glanced at it. And we also have a couple of other resources on the websites that pertain to ALTs. One of them is the ALT Handbook, which you may not have heard of actually. We used to, I think, publish it and hand it out at orientations, but it's a little bit outdated, and so we're kind of working on making an updated version of that, but you can find it online right now on the JET program website. I'll talk a little bit more about it later. We also offer a mental health support system. One of these is it's kind of a subsidy or a grant, where if you see a professional in Japan, and this can be in person or in Skype, but the point is they have to be practicing in Japan as a mental health professional. We offer a subsidy of up to 30,000 yen per year. Okay, that's about $300 for consultation received through a mental health professional in Japan. And the other type is we offer free online counseling as well. One of them is through a sort of web mail. It's kind of a back and forth messaging system. That one is unlimited in scope. We also offer Skype sessions. We used to offer 5, and recently we've bumped it up to 7 sessions for free per year with a counselor. And so again, you can find, we always send lots of information out about this, so you'll find more information about that later. And it's also on the website at any time. The online Japanese language courses is the last point I would like to talk about. So I don't know if any of you have signed up for, well, I know you have. I'm on the Japanese language team, but have you signed up for Japanese language courses already? Have you started? Okay. Sign up and enrollment timing is a little bit weird and hard to work with. Basically, if you sign up by the 10th of any given month, you will be enrolled in the class that starts on the 1st of that next month. So we offer, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the JLPT. The courses roughly pertain to about the N5, N4, and N3 level, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So by all means, please do take advantage of those as they are there. All right. Next up. We also produce a monthly newsletter that we send out via email called Claire News. The newsletter contains important information from Claire to contracting organizations and JET participants. In addition to being sent to the email you register with Claire, it's also accessible anytime via the official website. However, I do want to note that we do sometimes include passwords in this email, but we cannot put passwords on the website. So do make sure you're signed up for this, for things like the mental health counseling passwords and things. Living in a foreign country and getting used to a very different work culture can be stressful, as we understand. And so, as I mentioned before, we do offer the online counseling service. So by all means, please do take advantage of this. There is a handout in your jet bags. You can go ahead and take a look at that for more details about either of those two sources. And if you have any other questions, you can also ask your either your contracting organization supervisor or your PA, your prefectural advisor. Okay, so you all should have received a form entitled Request to Register Contact Information in your jet bags. Please go ahead and have a look at this form. If you could just take a second to look at that. Again, it's called Request to Register Contact Information. If you don't have that, just let us know soon. So there's a URL on that form. You're going to use that URL and register your email address and other contact information. Claire will use that email address to send you important information about the JET program, so please do register as soon as you can. Your contact information will be shared within Claire and any relevant government organizations, and basically for times of emergency, just in case. So we do recommend that you provide an email address that you do use frequently and can access from home, not just work. And if you do change that email address or any contact information, please just change it, update it on the form as soon as possible. Okay, and using that form, you can also easily enroll in the Japanese language courses, just kind of all in one shot. So, all right, so let's move on. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Claire's safety confirmation system. Please notice that even if you have registered your contact details on the general system, introduced just now in the previous slide, you're also required to register your details separately for the safety confirmation system. And this is known as an emergency call system. It is operated by Claire, and it's used to basically confirm the safety of JET participants in times of major disasters using a mailing system. It is very important that you obviously register your contact information as soon as possible with this system. The URL for the website is included in your handout materials. The first time you log in, you're going to use the last 9 digits of your JET number. And then basically it's going to ask you to set your own personal login, so do something that you can remember, a password that you won't forget. If you have any questions about registering for this or how it works or anything, obviously anytime you can consult with your supervisor at your contracting organization. The details of this basically is that, are you familiar with the Japanese system of earthquakes, how we measure earthquakes? Basically, instead of the magnitude scale, it's measured based on the actual amount of shaking and damage done. And so in the event of an upper 5, which is a gokyo in Japanese, every time an earthquake of an upper 5 occurs, this safety confirmation system will send an email out to basically check on you and see that you're okay. And this is even if a lot of earthquakes happen. I'm not trying to scare you here, but even if a lot of earthquakes happen in a very short time frame, every single time it's going to send out an email, okay? So as the situation could change by the second during a string of disasters, we do ask for your cooperation by letting us know your most up-to-date safety status by responding immediately to these confirmation emails each time. In addition to Claire, the host prefecture in which you are placed will also have access to information on JET participants under their jurisdiction collected through this confirmation system. Also, if deemed necessary, this information might also be shared with your home country's embassy, Japanese embassies and consulates in your home country, and the 3 Japanese government ministries. So besides this confirmation system that Claire operates, it's very likely that probably your host prefectures will operate their own kind of system on their own. So please be sure what you should do and who you should contact during a disaster in advance. Make sure that you register for their system as well if necessary. And I really recommend this too. Try to get the contact information of not only your supervisor but your colleagues too, just other teachers, so that you can maintain frequent communication if the need arises. And of course your prefectural advisor, your PA, you should get their contact information too. And I assume that you're going to meet your PAs at your local orientations after you leave Tokyo. Okay, moving on, I'd like to talk a little bit about another riveting topic, insurance. All JET participants are covered by 4 types of insurance, so that's good news. The first one is employees' health insurance, JET accident insurance, employees' pension insurance, and employment insurance. They all sound basically the same. But there is more information about all of this in pages 52 through 60 in your General Information Handbook. And if you are ever in doubt about coverage or anything like that, please ask your contracting organization supervisor. Your health insurance card is very important. Please make sure to keep it in a safe place and take it with you every time you go to a medical facility. All right, moving on. On the JET program website, you can also find the JET program Accident Insurance Policy Guide, which explains the insurance coverage in detail. Through this guide and the other information located on the website, you can learn the process for making an insurance claim, the details of your coverage, and where you can make inquiries about your insurance plan. Do take a moment, especially if you plan, even if you don't plan to travel really, do take a few minutes and just read through what the coverage entails, okay? I'd really recommend that. And another important document is this blue pension book. This is a very important document that you will need at the end of your term on the program. So please keep it in a safe place, don't lose it. If you stay in Japan upon finishing your term, according to the employment insurance policies, you'll be eligible to actually receive unemployment allowance. And you also need this to get your lump sum payment, to get your pension back that you're going to be paying into over the next however many years. Okay. Moving on, we're going to talk about disaster preparedness now. So we realize that, I've only, how many minutes do I have left? We can't possibly provide you with all the information related to disasters and emergency situations just in this presentation alone. But the aim of this part of the presentation, I think, is just to sort of give you some basic but essential information about Japan's natural disasters, what to expect, and maybe give you an idea of some of the do's and don'ts in certain situations. As well as provide information on helpful resources offered by Claire and other parties. So, as you probably know, Japan is a country that is prone to various natural disasters. As you're likely aware, in 2011, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan struck the country's northeastern region, generating an enormous tsunami wave, which took almost 20,000 lives. Furthermore, 1 year ago, a magnitude 6.7 earthquake occurred in Hokkaido that left many dead and injured and caused a lot of infrastructural damage. Based on research data by the Japan Institute of Countryology and Engineering, actually 20.5% of all earthquakes worldwide measuring a 6 or higher on the seismic, this is on the, I think the seismic intensity scale, so I guess that would be Richter, occur in Japan. So 1/5 of all of them. I'm really not trying to scare you, but I say that, and then here's this slide. There's not only a high risk of earthquakes and tsunamis in Japan, but the country is also affected every year by typhoons. Typhoons sound a little bit scary, especially as an American, when I thought of, it's basically a hurricane, and I'm from Indiana, so we obviously don't have hurricanes, but hurricanes are pretty scary to me, but in Japan, they're a pretty run-of-the-mill occurrence, but please do not underestimate them, as they can lead to, of course, there's heavy rainfall, so landslides and mudslides and things can occur. Japan is also prone to heavy snowfall, especially up in the north in Hokkaido, floods, volcanic eruptions, the whole kit and caboodle. But again, we don't want to scare you today. We just want to kind of help you prepare a little bit in case a disaster happens. And the biggest thing is that you have a plan. That's the biggest thing, really, is that you know ahead of time what to do. Okay, so moving on. There's that. So a disaster could happen at any time, and it is probably easier to remain calm in that kind of situation when you're already prepared. So let's talk about what to do. So we're going to focus on earthquakes and typhoons / torrential rain because we just don't have enough time to cover all of the different kinds of natural disasters and whatnot. And these are the most common and or likely that you're going to experience here in Japan. So this graph from the Japan Meteorology Agency shows what can happen during an earthquake according to its size. So at the top you've got 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are the kind of the lighter ones with very little shaking. And as you can see here, if you look at the 5 upper in the bottom left corner, this is about where you need to start taking action. Okay, stuff's falling from the bookshelves and whatnot. If you use a Japanese phone provider, you might also receive a warning on your phone through the earthquake early warning system. I think like iPhones, you don't even sign up for it, it just automatically comes. I don't think mine does, but that's kind of scary. There are also applications that you can install, even if you don't receive like the kind of national warning. You can install lots of different applications with like GPS maps and people, like a Twitter-like feed that shows what people are experiencing. So technology is really amazing nowadays. So I do recommend installing something on your phone. Let's see, yeah, I don't really need to talk about that anymore. Okay. So if you're at home, let's talk about what to actually do. First thing you want to do is turn off any gas or heating appliances. Anything that could cause a fire should immediately just kill the switch, shut the valve, etc. Next, you want to secure a way to evacuate the premises, open the doors to rooms and to the entrance to the building, sorry. Always wear shoes, even when you're inside, which sounds a little taboo in Japan, but in this case you should, to avoid injury, as there could obviously be pieces of broken glass or other dangerous objects on the floor. It's possible that less powerful shaking called aftershocks may occur following the main quake, so even during these aftershocks, just remember to remain calm and just try to avoid panicking. Let's see, moving on. Sorry, I'm just going to click through these so that you can see them all at the same time. You should also try to obtain accurate information on your own. Follow the news on TV, the internet and radio as well. Those three I guess are probably the most reliable to stay correctly informed. After a major earthquake, it is very easy to be misinformed by rumors and hearsay. So yeah, I don't know if Twitter's the best one. But if you get, obviously, if you're a subscriber to like NHK, for example, you should just have your TV on. That's probably the best source of information, in my opinion. And having a radio, in case electricity goes out, having a radio that just relies on battery, I think is something I would recommend too. And also, if necessary, get ready to evacuate to a designated shelter. These might differ based on the type of disaster. When you arrive at your contracting organization, please be sure to confirm with your supervisor where the nearest designated shelter is in relation to both your workplace and your home. Before you leave the house, again, make sure you shut off the gas supply valve and your circuit breaker. So those two things to prevent fires. If you're in a building, of course, use the stairs. Do not use elevators to evacuate. And if you do need to evacuate, evacuate on foot to a designated shelter. Don't drive, don't even take a bicycle, and do not take more with you than what you need for emergency survival. Okay. If you're away from home when an earthquake strikes, do stay away from vending machines, utility poles, gates, and concrete block walls at the time of the earthquake. Be sure to protect your head with a bag or a similar object from possible falling objects like broken windows, signboards, etc. Find an open area or a park are the best options for evacuation. And in a high-rise building, evacuate from the building using the stairs. Again, don't use the elevator. If you're on a train, you can grab a strap or a bar to kind of prevent yourself from falling over. The train will stop. They have emergency systems in place to stop, like they sense it before it really hits. So that shouldn't be, the derailing shouldn't be a big issue. But after the train has stopped, you should just stay calm and wait for instructions from the conductor. Nowadays, I think English instructions, English-speaking conductors and whatnot, they have a lot of that prepared pretty well nowadays. But just be on the lookout and keep an ear out for that. And if you're driving a car, Holding the steering wheel very firmly, you want to slow down and stop the car. Don't keep driving on the left side of the road, which is the side that you're going to be driving on, and turn off the engine. And you want to wait in the car, turn on your radio, and maybe check your internet until the earthquake is finished. Just kind of, follow, look at, see if you can find any updated news and whatnot going on based on the earthquake. And if there are police that are out and stationed, please, keep an eye out for them on the road. They might be kind of driving around, patrolling, and follow any directions they might have. Okay, looking at typhoons and torrential downpour. Shut your windows, shut your shutters. When a typhoon hits your area, do not go outside. Stay away from places that might be dangerous, ocean-related or river-related. So don't go to the seaside, don't go to the river. Depending on geographical conditions, some areas might have a greater risk of unexpectedly high tides or flooding or landslides. So please be mindful of that. Looking at weather watches and warnings issued by the meteorological agency, frequently checking the weather news, internet, TV, for latest storm watches and warnings, of course. Going to move on. We're going to stay away from basements as well, as of course they might be very easily flooded during a heavy rain, and do not use an elevator if you need to go downstairs. Okay. All right, and some advice regarding disaster and emergency preparation. If you plan to travel, first, we do recommend, this is kind of getting a little bit away from just disaster preparedness itself, but if you're going to travel, you should share to some degree your travel plans with your contracting organization. You don't have to tell them exactly like which hotel you're going to be at every day or anything like that, but just so that they know, they can confirm your safety in the case of an emergency in Japan. Also, please be aware of the following emergency telephone numbers in Japan. 110. Can be used to contact police to report crime or a traffic incident. 119 can be used to call to report a fire or to call an ambulance when emergency medical care is needed. Both of these numbers can be called 24 hours a day, and you can request an English translator. Okay, so 110 for police, 119 for ambulance and fire. Okay, you should also have 2 A4 size handouts on disaster preparedness in your jet bags. One is called the Emergency Pocket Guides for Jets. Go ahead and take a moment to locate these, please. So the Emergency Pocket Guide for Jets. And one of them is instructions, and the other is the actual pocket guide. So follow the instructions to fold up. You don't have to do this right now, but you're going to fold up this pocket guide. And the point of it is, it's got like a list of emergency items and steps to take in the case of a natural disaster. If you don't have access to internet or news or anything like that, you can at least have this paper copy that you can have with you at all times. Just keep it in your bag, with you when you go to work and whatnot. So follow the instructions on the other sheet, fold it accordingly, and you'll have a handy little pocket guide. Sorry for the lack of pictures. There you go. Looks like this. All right, moving on. In that pocket guide, so again, we've got important items and list of items for emergency. The list of important items refers to things such as your residence card, your health insurance card, which you should have with you all the time, regardless of whether or not there's a disaster going on. In addition, it is recommended that you carry with that pocket guide with you at all times. You also might want to keep an eye out for a public telephone. Public phones, I don't know, they're pretty out of style in the US as far as I know, but there are still a lot of public phones around in Japan, so it might be a good idea to keep just some extra coins on hand, just in case. And remember that this list on this emergency guide, this is kind of just the bare minimum of what you're going to want to need. You can also do research online to see what other people recommend. You can also buy pretty handy kits, like on Amazon, for example, like an emergency disaster survival kit kind of thing that you just keep in your house on Amazon for like $100, and that might just give you some peace of mind that you've got some rations and some water and some basic like first aid and a radio and things like that. So I recommend maybe looking into that. Okay, so other than these, various organizations do provide useful information about disaster prevention. Some local municipalities might also offer their own disaster support tools and resources. So if they do that at your placement, obviously you should make use of those. Please go ahead and take a look at the example illustrated in the disaster risk reduction / disaster prevention support tools that we've handed out to you. Should be one of your handouts. Okay. And in addition to stocking up on food and daily necessities, there are other things that you can do to better prepare yourselves for disasters. You'll find a section of the pocket guide that says my personal information, work-related and embassy information, and evacuation center and important contacts. It's not uncommon to panic or feel confused in a time of emergency, so it is recommended that you go ahead and, ahead of time, take some time to fill in the blanks, your own contact information. This way, I'm really not trying to scare you, but if you're ever found unconscious or something, this is a possibly important thing where other people can get in touch with your family, friends, by just looking at your pocket guide. There's also a space for you to, again, fill out information about your embassy. We do recommend also each embassy has, in addition to filling out on the pocket guide, each embassy typically has its own safety confirmation system that you can sign up for. Personally, I can't speak for other countries, but I know that the United States Embassy does have on their website a service that you just sign up with, and they send you regular updates about like travel warnings and weather-related issues and things like that. So I do recommend signing up for your embassy's safety confirmation contact system as well. Okay, and in addition, it is important to get to know the area in which you reside as a member of your community. Once you arrive, please check the location of the nearest emergency evacuation center. They might also hold like disaster preparedness seminars and evacuation drills. I highly recommend that you do, even if it's just entirely in Japanese. It'll be a good chance to practice perhaps, but go and just learn a bit more about what it takes to protect yourself in these kinds of times of emergency. And it'll also give you a chance to interact with and kind of get to know your neighbors and show your face in the community. So I do recommend attending those. Okay, here's another resource. Obviously, there are lots of natural disasters that we cannot cover in detail in this whole orientation, not just this presentation itself. And so Claire collaborates with the Japan Weather Association every year to produce English subtitles for the association's educational video series. This is called Easy to Understand Weather Phenomenon and Natural Disasters. And this is kind of a larger part, it's part of a larger effort, I guess, to provide educational material about natural disasters to foreigners in Japan. They're about 20 minutes in length each, and they explain not only the mechanism behind natural disasters, so you get to learn a little about how they work, and also what to do in the case of an emergency. Okay, so these videos are found on the JET program website under Current JETs, and then Support, and Emergency Support. That's what it should look like. Okay, so in your free time, we do recommend that you just take a few minutes and watch those. Okay, it looks like there are 5 videos total. So lastly, I'd like to go ahead and summarize the steps that Claire strongly recommends that you take as soon as possible after you arrive at your placements. Okay, first thing is to write all of that important information in your emergency pocket guides. Register your information with the JET safety confirmation system. Talk to your supervisor and or your PA, your prefectural advisor, about disaster preparedness in general, evacuation centers, maybe if there are emergency drills that are taking place throughout the year that you can attend. And lastly, we do recommend that you register your information with your home embassy. Okay? All right, last thing we would like to talk about, touch on a little bit of Japanese law and online safety and responsibility. So the first point I would like to talk about is in regards to the use and possession of drugs. The possession, use, and attempted purchase or importation of drugs in Japan is strictly prohibited by Japanese law. Not only stronger drugs like cocaine and heroin, but also marijuana is even also very, very severely punished in Japan. It may be legal now in some countries, but it is still treated as a very serious crime here in Japan. They take it very seriously. Okay, it is not a joke. So even recreational use of marijuana is not tolerated. If you're found guilty of possessing illegal substances, you may be sentenced up to 10 years in prison. This will, of course, affect your chances of being granted permission to return to Japan in the future. And receiving a package that includes drugs like marijuana from friends or family back home is also treated just as seriously, so do not do that. Next, I want to talk a little bit about driving in Japan. Please note that the regulations regarding international driving permits may differ according to your nationality, and the procedures for obtaining a driver's license may differ from area to area in Japan. We do recommend that you consult with your supervisor about the necessary procedures before you start driving in Japan. And in the General Information Handbook, you can look at page 125 for driving. Just a quick note about drinking and driving. It's a zero tolerance policy. So even just a drop of alcohol, you're not allowed to drive. So this also actually applies to riding a bicycle. So you cannot ride a bicycle while intoxicated. And also it's illegal to knowingly ride in a vehicle with a driver who has been drinking. And you can also be held responsible for allowing somebody, like if you gave your car keys to somebody who's been drinking, to drive. You are held liable for that. So in the unfortunate event that an accident does occur, of course, please call an ambulance and perform first aid treatments and do anything you can to save the victim's life. Okay. Next up, talking about students and minors. In Japan, even in cases of mutual consent, it is strictly forbidden by law to engage in sexual activity with a person under 13 years of age. In cases of sexual conduct where the victim is between the ages of 13 and 18, the offender will be punished according to their local government's juvenile protection ordinance. Furthermore, molestation, which is basically bodily contact, kissing, removing the underage party's clothing, etc., is punished in exactly the same way. So don't do that. I mean, sorry, I have to sit here and tell you this, but please don't. Regarding online safety and responsibility, this is kind of a gray area, so I want to talk about it really quickly. Looking at what you put on your SNS, your social media networks and whatnot, I think before the rules might used to have been a little lax, but it's been a little bit stricter lately what schools allow their employees to put online. So do not take pictures of your students and put them online. Even putting pictures of their homework, like if you get a funny homework answer, it's something that you really need to talk to your supervisor about and get permission before you just go randomly putting stuff online, okay? So please be mindful of that. Okay, and I think I don't really need to say this, but Japan, I know it has a reputation as a pretty safe country, but of course crime can still happen here. So just use common sense and be careful when you're going out late at night. If you're going to a crowded area like an entertainment district, okay, do what you would do in any other country and just be safe about it. Okay, running a bit short on time, but the point of this slide and this section of the presentation is just don't joke around with this kind of stuff. If you do get arrested and prosecuted, you will be detained in custody for possibly months before you get a trial. You're not allowed to speak with anybody except for your attorney during that time. Obviously, bad things will happen if you're found guilty. You're kicked off of JET, and you will probably be deported from Japan. And yeah, so just do take all of this seriously, the Japanese law part of it. We've already mentioned the attendance cards, and of course this whole event is still, it's part of your work duties. It is a professional conference, so please stay in business attire throughout the whole thing. And let's see. Well, obviously just use manners. Don't use your phone during presentations and things like that. Please participate actively and whatnot. There is a survey that was included in your JET bags. So tomorrow afternoon, there's going to be a designated time where they're going to ask for your, I think it's it's pretty much at the end of the day, you're going to submit these. So by all means, this is how we improve on orientations for future JET participants. So by all means, please leave some feedback. You've got some information on your name tags. I don't know if you've received this explanation before, but you've got, for example, CIRs have a special mark. You're also going to have class assignments for the next workshops, the team teaching, demonstration, and effective lesson planning, so please refer to your name tags for that information. And I also want to briefly mention AJET. So AJET stands for the Association for Japan Exchange and Teaching. It's a volunteer support network run by, it's basically by Jets, for Jets, and it is composed of prefectural as well as a national council. And basically what AJET does is they provide useful information regarding life in Japan. They have social media accounts. They have a magazine called Connect. There are a lot of ways to get involved in this. They do like professional and educational development and things like that as well. It's a really great resource. I was actually a member of AJET as the web coordinator for 2 years, and I can't recommend enough. Do get involved. If you want to, for example, submit an article, if you like to write or take pictures, you could submit photos or articles for, to the Connect, the magazine that they run. So please check AJET out. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Sorry, this is a bit dry, but this is really important information, so we have to kind of get it across. So thank you all. I do appreciate your time and your attention. And we do, at Claire, wish you a very safe and comfortable life here in Japan. Hopefully this presentation has better equipped you a little bit to adapt to life here, as well as for your work on the JET program. We're going to now enter a 1 hour and 15-minute lunch break. Before we do that, I want to make a really quick announcement that perhaps didn't get across earlier. If Mr. Wesley Van Fredenberg could please, you don't have to raise your hand or anything, please come to the Claire office on the 4th floor at your earliest convenience, okay? Wesley Van Fredenberg. So, all right, thank you guys. All right.